Hello, welcome to another episode of It Sure Is a Podcast. Today I'm joined by a friend that, I've known you for quite a while. I would like to introduce Eric to the podcast. Eric, introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. It's great to be here.
All right, Eric, you introduced yourself. All right, that's it for today.
Good to be here. Glad I could come on.
What if I literally did the whole episode where I just invited you, you said that, and then I just, you didn't talk for the rest of the time. I kicked you out, and I'm like, all right.
Wait, where did he go? We thought this was going to be some... Nope, all right.
No, definitely not. So, oh man, how long have we been trying to set this up? A few weeks?
At least, yeah. I've been listening since the beginning. Been bugging you, so...
Mm-hmm. And you even said the one time, it's like, well, I'm getting my 30s, so I think it's time to do something with the podcast.
Yep.
I think there was a time where, where's my drink? There it is. I think there was a time where it was like there was the rite of passage when you got older. It was like, back then, it was like, you became a adult when you had the big boy job and when you had a motorcycle, stuff like that. And no, the rite of passage now is if you hit your 30s, you're like, well, I guess it's time to start a podcast.
Career's not going exactly where I wanted. This is my end.
Yeah, it seriously is, which is crazy. But, it's accessible. And it's interesting. You're going to get to see me whenever I talk with my hands. And you're going to see me over here waving like a chicken. And you're going to be sitting there like, oh my gosh, this guy's nuts.
No. Normally, when I'm listening, it's just, yep, I understand this completely.
Yeah. So how long it was like 2 or 3 weeks, maybe even 4. We're trying to set this up.
I'd say probably about 3.
Yeah, because you're a grown up, you got a big boy job, you got stuff you need to do.
Yep. I have unfortunately landed in that realm of my free time is no longer my free time.
Yeah, no, and especially being married, like you have to share that free time with someone else, which is...
Yeah, my free time is now her free time.
Right.
It's can I have permission to do this?
Yeah, because I had to ask you, and I even told you when I was texting you, I'm like, ask your wife.
Yeah, and as soon as I saw that, I was like, oh shoot, I really do have to check.
Because a lot of times they'll plan something that you don't know has been planned. And then you're like, I have the day off, and you take a seat and you pull out your controller, ready to play something. And she slides in from the kitchen. She's like, "Hey, we got this going on. You might want to get off your game."
That is incredibly accurate. I have gotten very used to. She's the organized one. She sets everything, and I'm just like, all right, just tell me when. And if I don't remember, that's happened. I'm like, all right, a day off finally. Nope, we got this, and this. Get your shoes on. We're going.
Yeah. And this episode was, oh my goodness, it was, I didn't think it was going to work because I got here at 11 and it's about 12:45 now. We haven't even started. And my new setup, the new quality of mics, the new XLR stuff, it was all here. And all of a sudden, it just doesn't want to work. And I kind of troubleshooted for an hour, then I clicked the button and it worked.
I had no problem. I was just sitting there listening to him try to set it up, learning about it, and I just, you saw the fear rising, and I just felt so bad because I have no tech ability at all whatsoever. So I'm like, I can't even offer assistance.
And the thing was, I had it set up and it was working. And then I was afraid to press this button, so I got to the, it's an hour in. I'm like, all right, screw it. I'm going to do it. And I just pressed the button. And it came right through the speakers. It went into the program. It was beautiful. It worked. And it took an hour. And when it started working, I almost cried. Like I told you, I'm like, I might cry right now.
Which I do have to do, real quick story about that.
That
was a perfect reaction. What you don't want to react to when you're doing that. When I was, I don't know, 5-6 years ago or something, I was helping my dad fix his car. His window would not go up and down. It was power windows. I'm like, Dad, just take it somewhere. I'm not going to spend the money. He spent, I don't know how many hundreds of dollars on parts, how many hours we were taking it apart. I kept telling him, I noticed there's a button on the door. It said lock. And he's like, no, that's for the door locks. I'm like, Dad, I don't think you have power door locks. No, it's for the locks. Spent, I don't know, a couple weekends working on this. We had it torn apart, and I got the same thing. Because I'm like, I want to play video games. I want to see my friends. I want to stop helping my dad do this. I try, I just, same reaction. You know what? Screw it. I'm going to hit the button. Hit the button, and I just put the window down, and as he's on the outside of the car, and he's staring at me as the window's coming down, so he, without a word, stands over, picks up this $300 motor that he had bought for the vehicle, slams it on the ground, and walks inside.
I assume when it was slammed on the ground, it was destroyed.
It was in pieces. And at first I was worried. I was like, oh no, I'm in trouble. And then I was howling with tears in my eyes with laughter. My mom comes out also laughing. She goes, your dad grabbed a beer and sat down, and I saw that he left you out here. Is it fixed? And I was like, why don't you ask him? But give him an hour before you ask.
Yeah, that's not what I did. Oh my gosh, like throwing this Focusrite like right at the wall. I felt like it. I did. But also, this isn't my house either. This is your house, and we're using a storage room. It's a nice storage room. It's nice and compact, but right now Eric's over there. There's one of those heightened dinner chairs for like a dinner table that's a little higher than most, with a fitness ball box, and the mic is sitting on it. I'm here in the corner in a chair, and the setup we have the setup's very scuffed, and at the moment when I was trying to figure everything out, I didn't know if it was going to happen. But we're here recording, all lights are green, everything's good. Because also, I was telling him that there's been episodes I've recorded where it did not record at all, and I literally lost my mind, because that's just an hour or plus of you sitting there talking to yourself.
Well, and then it's stream of consciousness thought, if you lose that hour, you can try to re-say everything, but you're not going to have the same reaction. It's not going to seem genuine because you're trying to recreate it instead of just the original, word vomit coming out.
Oh, and there's something magical about word vomit, because then you get some really interesting discussions.
You get to see some people's real colors when they do that. You get a glimpse inside their head. Sometimes it's cool. I have to be a little careful. I have... it's a roller coaster in there sometimes. So
a tendency to ramble.
Yeah.
Is that what you'd say?
Yes.
A tendency to ramble. I mean, the whole podcast was set up just for me to ramble about my interests and other stuff that I do, and it's got to be a safe place for, just okay. Oh, obviously, we're never going to talk about politics because you get enough of that. So
I was extremely excited to come on here because I don't have a lot of outlets for my interest. Excuse me. I work in a manufacturing field, so I work with a lot of older gentlemen. They're very conservative. They don't... there's not a lot of video game talk. There's not a lot of, say, nerdy topics that come up. So I'm a little out of place there, and so this is a great outlet, finally, where I can just sit down and actually talk about, let's just say, the fun stuff in life.
Yeah. And I honestly think this is going to be the first time, I've known you for years, and I think this is the first time that you and I are going to sit down and have a discussion like this, where just, all that nerdy stuff, because whenever we hang out with our other group of friends, we start having the conversation, and then it will get quiet, and everyone's like...
Yeah, everybody's staring in the background.
What are you talking about, huh? What are you talking about over there? And then we talk about, it's we're talking about the intricate lore of Lord of the Rings, or something else related, or the world building of Mass Effect, and they're like, nerds!
Yeah. So, well, that's why we were over here in the corner, guys. You talk about whatever it is you want, but...
Yeah, because I think, last time, literally, they were talking about... When we all hung out, it was wedding stuff, or they were talking about...
Oh my gosh, wedding stuff.
I don't know, bills and stuff, adult stuff. And I'm like, I do adult stuff all week. And I'm kind of in the same spot with you with work, is I don't work with anyone who's nerdy at all. They're all the business person who's making the grind. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, oh, man, I mean... RuneScape's pretty dope.
I have to worry about bills and work and the house and wife and love her to death, but you need that outlet. You have these interests. It's not healthy to keep that bottled up. I can only talk about cars at work for so long. I'm not a car guy. I just don't care.
I don't know anything about cars. People talk to me about cars, and I have to remind them every time. I'm like, I'm not a car guy. You show me a picture of a car, and if you're excited about it, I'm going to say, that's a nice looking car. It got 4 wheels, and I assume it can drive. So you got a good car, man. Like, that's how simple I am. I'm a simple human being. I'm not.
I dropped this motor in my car over the week. That's cool. Are you gonna let me drive it? No. Then why do I care?
That's bragging. They're bragging about it. And I noticed that, like, you got a setup downstairs where it's like you have your little TV and like all your games on it.
We discovered very early on in relation to my wife, we have different interests as far as like TV viewing, video games, stuff like that, but we are that weird codependent couple where we still love spending time together. So we figured out what works best. She has her TV, I have mine, and it works out perfectly. She can watch her Real Housewives, she can play whatever game she's playing. I have my nice little stand. I have like 2 or 3 different consoles set up on it so I can just sit there and play. And it works.
Yeah, what do you got? You got like the Xbox under there?
The original 360, or I have my PS4. I have not gone to the next gen, but we can talk about that in a little bit because I have my grievances with that.
Yes.
But then
yes.
and I love the Switch too. I know you've talked about that before. I absolutely love the Switch, but I will say that's probably more of the wife's console. She loves games. We just got the new Pokemon Snap. She got a game, My Time at Portia. She loves playing that.
She only talks about good stuff about that, and I'm kind of in the boat right now where I have a set of games that I'm playing like religiously. Like that's what I'm doing in my spare time. So it's on the backlog. And a few episodes ago, I got my stack of games that weren't even opened. They were still in the plastic I purchased, and they just sat there.
Doesn't it just break your heart because you're looking at it and you're like, I haven't forgotten about you. You will be played one day.
One day.
I have, unfortunately, this adult life that has to come first.
Seriously, and it just, I'm just like stressing out over here just thinking about it because it's just money I spent that I didn't need to spend. But also Switch games, a lot of the times the physical ones, they come and go really fast. You can still get it digitally, but I like the physical games.
We what was it? We bought one of the Harvest Moons. I know this has been an ongoing topic she hated it. She played the original ones from a long time ago and she absolutely loved them. Got this and was like, this isn't the same game. This isn't fun. It's not. Again, take it all with a grain of salt. It's opinion, but it wasn't what she was looking for. But she bought the digital copy. There's no money back. There's no trade-in value, and so she was just, we're not doing this anymore. If it's a physical copy, we're going that route.
And that's the thing, because there's still a market to be able to sell the games back, and that is a saving grace for a lot of games. Because I'll buy a game and I'm like, it's a niche game, but I hear so much about it, and I'm, all right, I'll throw some money at it, see if it's worth it. If I absolutely despise it, okay, I can get some money back, trade it in for somewhere. I mean, my stance on GameStop, so it's not obviously there. I'm going to go to one of the exchange locations and get that traded in.
I prefer local game stores. I am, however, a sacrilegious individual. I do shop at GameStop. Probably more than I should.
And it's fine. I don't hate anyone for doing it because there's good people that work there and good people that go there. It's just like all my experiences were not the greatest, and I was just like, I'm not going to shop there anymore. And
I was lucky. Where we live, there's one local, and the same people, or at least a few of the individuals, have worked there for a long time. So I walk in, they recognize me, they know I'm there to spend money. They're very helpful, very knowledgeable. So that I get that it's not a local game store, but they're local people who I have seen around town and stuff. So I get that benefit, but then also I get offered 16 cents for a game when I want to trade it in. Seriously.
All right, let me mark that down. You lost points for liking GameStop.
I don't know if we'll get to it today, but we still have to have the Elder Scrolls debate at some point.
I figured that would happen at one point, and I have to prepare myself for it.
We can save that because I have points why some people love it, others hate it, and it's a very, very small detail, I think, in the grand scheme of things, but how it changes how you look at it. So that's why you're gonna love it or you're gonna hate it.
Ooh. Now I'm just sitting here because that's going to be just a can of worms that's going to have to be taken. It's going to be opened. We're going to have to pick it apart and figure that out. But yeah, my stance on Elder Scrolls is it definitely is not my favorite game. I understand why people love it. It just isn't necessarily for me.
So I have a quick question. You're not a fan of that. Are you a fan of Fallout?
No, I'm not a fan of
Okay, so
Fallout
it's that
either.
whole style of kind of gameplay that's not your...
Yes, but like at the same time, there's games that follow that kind of structure that I do like. It's just for some reason the Bethesda games just don't jive with me very well. And once again, it's not a knock toward the games because there's a huge community behind both of them and they are worthy of their praise, but for some reason it's just not for me.
Well, and I totally get that because their other big title, The Elder Scrolls Online, I spent an unholy amount of money getting the membership and getting started and everything, and I was like, this is Elder Scrolls, it's their whole world, this is going to be great, I can put all this time into it. I hated it. Gameplay was cool, but I don't know if it's the MMORPG. I don't know if it's you have to pay to stay in that world. Something about it. Of course, after the money is non-refundable, it just didn't click. I didn't have that same fascination with it, and I think it has to do with the style of gameplay. But I'm going to save those points until we sit down and have the great debate.
The great debate of Skyrim, which. I'm happy you brought it up at the same time. I'm dreading it. I'm just like, oh no.
All right, let me redeem myself a little bit then. You have completely destroyed The Witcher 3. I love that game to no end now. I am probably going to start a new file on it today or tomorrow. I believe I have The Witcher 2 somewhere for the 360, and now I'm so immersed in that world, I have to know what happened. I'll probably wind up getting the books as well. So thank you for that money pit.
Okay, then now that you have redeemed yourself, because a lot of people always criticize like, do you like The Witcher? I'm like, yeah, but it's like you're role playing as that character in that world, and it's so immersive for me.
And that's, I think, one of those subtle distinctions. It's not the same game. It's not the same gameplay style. And that's why I think it's so... Now, I like them both, so I'm lucky in that, because that just opens up a whole genre of games to play. But The Witcher, like you're saying, it's not the same. I will argue that point to anybody who says that to you. Those Skyrim and The Witcher are two wholly different games for many reasons.
Yeah, Witcher is definitely the narrative RPG.
Yes.
Where you are told a fantastic story, you have say in it, and then you can kind of... I mean, Geralt of Rivia, he is who he is, but you kind of get the mold. Is he like more aggressive? Is he more loving to those who he cares about? And Skyrim and the Elder Scroll games is like you were put in a sandbox and you're allowed to create your own fantasy adventure in a world. And the world's going to happen around you even if you don't, engage in it. And I do like games that are like that, but for some reason, just Elder Scrolls for me is not the thing. And I think the one thing is that when you finish a quest, there's no
yep. XP. I know it. You spend however many hours diving through some Dwemer ruin, and you waste 4 hours killing enemies that are jacked beyond their level should be, and then, okay, here's 60 gold coins and this piece of crap sword,
and that's your
and that's it. It's wait, what? I'm sorry, what?
All right. I have my notes here on what we're talking about. We're just doing the Skyrim debate right now.
Yep,
I've we already went down too far, so please continue. You get to the end, and it's just like, okay, all there is just gold and sword. And I understand that they want you to get experience through using your skills, which I'm all for that, because I am balls deep in Valheim right now, where that game really pushes that you have to use these skills to level up these abilities, but it's also not structured like an RPG in that sense. So I think maybe that's why I like it. Maybe.
I don't think I've played Valheim. I'm going to have to try and see on that one.
Well, okay, Valheim, I've been stressing you for a long time, is a PC Master Race game.
Oh,
no, it's in early access, so...
I do have to point out he is the superior here because I am just the peasant with the last gen PS4 console.
I mean, I still have last gen PS4, and consoles are great. And it's just where I'm at right now, and the games that I like, they all show up on PC. And also, what is really nice that I will say is better is that I don't have to pay a subscription fee to go online. You know what I mean? Like if you play like PlayStation, you have to get 50 months of PS Plus. That I just turn it on my computer and I'm just playing it.
Now, does that come with? Obviously, there's no subscriptions to Sony or Microsoft, but do you get any free games with that service as well, or is that still?
So I mean, all right. That depends. Now, Steam is the dominant kind of digital storefront, but there's Epic Games and there's GOG Games, which is the people. CD Projekt Red own that, the ones who made The Witcher. And Epic pushes out a lot of free games all the time because I know you get free games with the PlayStation
And that was
Xbox.
That was the only saving grace I'll say for that console because, like you, I'm trying to budget a lot more. We have things we want to use the money on. So those monthly free games, yeah, there are months I have no interest in what they have, but I got a few. Final Fantasy VII Remake, which is now on my list to play. I've been dying to get that. I got it for, air quotes, free. Pay for the subscription, but that was awesome. That saved me $60 right there. Game Greedfall, it looked a little Fable-esque. I was thinking about getting it, but I didn't know if I wanted to spend the money. That I got lucky, and they put that one up as a free game, so it's helpful. But like you're saying, I'm paying that. You're paying all that money for a lottery. Are you gonna get something good, or is it just wasted money? So
yeah, and I mean, there's pros and cons at either side, but yeah, in Valhiem, that's a different discussion we can get to later, because also what I noticed in podcasts that bother me, and I don't know if it bothers you, I noticed something on the subreddit just for podcasts that when they get off track, they never go back to the subject they were talking about.
I have heard that on every podcast I have listened to.
And you're sitting there and you're like, I wanted to hear the Skyrim debate. And we would like never go back to it. But that's why I like put my foot down now. I'm like, okay, let's go back to the Skyrim thing, because that is definitely a discussion. So where we left off was that the Skyrim, when you finish a quest, all you get is swords and a sword and a few coins.
And to me, and I don't know if this is everybody. Now at low levels, those can be very rewarding. You can get like a magic sword that helps you out. You can, if when you desperately need gold in the beginning, that's great. But once you're 20 hours in, your person's leveled up. To me, the fun part of that game is always making your own equipment, figuring out what you like, gathering the resources on your own and doing it. I like that aspect of it. I don't see why they can't put some. Everybody's like, well, you level up by using the skills. How can they reward you? Do some small 2% increase towards every skill every time you complete a quest. There are hundreds of mini little side quests that would add up very quickly, and it would give you a lot more incentive to do it instead of just staring at 40 uncompleted quests that I'm not going to do this. Why?
Yeah, because when I played it, so it was like I can level up just by using the skills. So if I wasn't high enough level to do a quest, but I already started it and went halfway through, then I'm just running through starting areas, just using my abilities, just grinding and like killing everything I see. Now,
I'm a little weird in that one of the reasons I have enjoyed the Elder Scrolls, Oblivion and Skyrim are what I played. I played Oblivion first, could not go back to Morrowind, just couldn't handle that setup. So, but finding little tips and tricks to level up it gives you that grinding element. So, which I enjoyed, because then you can get your skills to where you want, get them usable, and then you can go out and enjoy the game. And you're like, hey, I found this new skill I want. What's a tip and trick I can use to get this leveled up? So it's not supposed to be that grinding. It's supposed to just be explore the world, but you can have that aspect, because I know you've talked about looter shooters as well, kind of grinding to get all that experience. Skyrim, you have to find it, but you can do that as well.
Yeah, and a lot of times the finding it, from what I understand, comes from going online, like going to Google and typing in, how do I blankety blank blank blank.
Yes, I, again, am that big of a nerd. Once you figure out the mechanics, the actual mechanics of what happens as you use that skill, You don't need to go online. You can just perfect example in Oblivion. Every time you jumped, it gave you an acrobatic skill. I went into somebody's basement and found a little crack in the wall where all it was like a half-inch jump, and you could just spam the jump button. Your acrobatics is up in an hour, up to 100. You are basically Superman at that point, jumping around.
I will say I do like their games for that reason, because they're so buggy, because they're so glitchy like that. Because a lot of times whenever someone makes a game, they're like, all right, here's the pathway we want you to take. You will not veer off that. And we have everything put in place so you cannot exploit our system. And like the Elder Scrolls games, like you could exploit their systems to ridiculous without like even mods or cheats or anything.
Yeah, they're just like, you're not going to cheat this, and well, yeah, we are. There's a million ways you can do it, but I'm going to go back to that experience thing. That's a big problem in those games, and I think that's what turns a lot of people off of that, because if you're going in there for that sense of achievement, almost like, I know I'm working real hard, I'm getting these skills up, you're not going to get it from that game. You just aren't.
No. What bothers me is that was just a design choice that they made. There was no, the technology wasn't there yet, or the concept wasn't there. No, because RuneScape that came out like 1999. has a similar system. However, once you complete a quest, depending on what the story involved of the quest, you will get a big fat chunk of XP related to a skill that was used in that quest. So there's one where you kind of have to, and all right, imagine RuneScape, like you know how RuneScape looks, right? Like the old school RuneScape where it's like everyone is a bunch of rectangles,
yes,
and it's like low. I mean, you could play it on a browser, for goodness sakes. And there's one quest where, okay, the whole quest you are kind of sneaking into this bank, and you're like actually running across the roof, chops and jumping, actually doing a heist. But I mean, it's 1999, so it's like all you do is click and you let the game run, and it's gonna roll your stats and see did you succeed or did you fail, kind of like Dungeons and Dragons. And then if you fail, you just have to do it over. So it's just, but when you finish it, you get a bunch of the equivalent of the acrobatic skill XP. So after doing that, you're like, oh, I'm rewarded with the skill I was using. So now I went up like 3 levels in that skill. Does that make sense?
Yes. And
I feel like maybe Elder Scrolls should have done something like that where, okay, obviously this is a Brotherhood mission, so I have to sneak around and be an assassin and stab everybody.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe at the end of it, big chunk of XP toward any like sneaking skills that I have.
I think that would be a huge improvement on their next one if they put something like that in, because they're like, well, if you're sneaking the whole time and assassinating somebody, well, if you do it right, you're going to swing your sword or dagger once. The mission will end. You're not going to get anything from that. So I agree. They should have something in there. I will say, I think one of the big differences in why certain people gravitate towards Skyrim or towards games like The Witcher, like you were saying, gameplay is great. The lore is great. Skyrim has good gameplay, has good lore behind it all. I think the difference is, and you preemptively beat me to it, was the character, Geralt. Geralt's going to be Geralt, I would say probably 75% of the time in that game, but then you get to add your flair of interpretation on how you see Geralt. What do you think his morals are? Obviously, in big storyline quests and everything, there's going to be measured responses, but like you were saying, you can choose in that game who are you going to save, which brings up also, that game is very, very focused on interaction between characters. How do you view them? How do they view you? If you do something, I screwed up. I had to reload a couple saves when I was doing it. People would leave and not come back in my story because I did stuff to make them angry.
Mm-hmm.
Skyrim doesn't have that aspect, which is, I will say, a point against it. But what Skyrim does have is the freedom to, you don't then have to worry about character interaction. Skyrim is, as you were saying, it's just a sandbox. You can give your character any backstory you want in your head. You can go out and do whatever you want in the world and don't necessarily have to worry about the consequences. There aren't that many choices to be made. Now, that's freeing in some cases. I love it because when I get in my head, I give him a whole biography about what I'm doing. When I'm doing the quest, I don't care what they're telling me to do. I have my own storyline going, which is great, and I think that's Skyrim's big appeal. If you don't like doing that, you are going to hate that game to no end.
Yeah. I think that's just where I stand. Is I like to play in sandboxes like that, but I guess just the mixture of flavors that Skyrim has, it just is not for me. And I don't really know. I've tried to play it. I've gotten halfway through every time, and I put it down, and I'm just like, I'm done.
Well, you also, the one thing too is you really have to enjoy the gameplay, which I do because it's so, especially in Skyrim, they made it a lot more versatile. So you can use different weapon styles. Magic is, if anybody ever played Oblivion and had like a really good mage, you're a wizard in real life because I couldn't do it. You need 600 to cast this. Like, well, no, I have 40. I don't know what's going to happen here. But Skyrim changed that around and made it good, and that's. If I'm playing Skyrim, that's what I'm playing for. Either the aspect of, like, they added the houses, you can build your house, crafting your weapons and armor. I'm playing it for the gameplay. The story is secondary. I'm going to come up with my own story and how I want to proceed on that. So you'll get out of it what you want from that aspect. But sometimes you don't want to think that way. Sometimes you want, and this is where I think people would gravitate more towards games like The Witcher. Mass Effect was a huge game in my childhood because they focus more on character interaction and how you're not shaping your character, you are shaping the world. Games like Mass Effect and Dragon Age, you have multiple characters in your party. You don't need to worry about gameplay because, you want to use magic? Switch to another character or buff that character. You're good to go. You have that. So you aren't as limited as you are with Skyrim, where you're going to craft a very specific play style. But sometimes that's cool if you're focused on that narrative. Those games will blow Skyrim out of the water every time. I'm not going to argue that point at all.
Yeah, I just the story I like games that are either just very arcadey, right to the point, this is what you're playing, or I want to be told a nice story. Also, I was kind of thinking about that, like Skyrim, you can craft your own weapons, but there's also the potential to find that weapon out in the world, which in my eyes kind of like, instead of putting my skill into that, I could just wait and maybe I'll find it.
And that's where I think where the paths diverge for what you're looking for, because I'm that weirdo. I like to be able to say I crafted this. Now, obviously it's a game, it wasn't me, but that sense of accomplishment, that's where my sense of accomplishment is coming from. Like, I leveled up this skill, I found all the materials, I made it, you can enchant it, do whatever. So to me, that makes it a lot more personal than just finding it and using it. Now, have I done that? Obviously, if it's something I've been dying to have, I'm going to use it until I can craft it later.
Right,
but,
yeah.
So that's I love Skyrim and Oblivion for that ability to just, here's the world, make of it what you will. There's a lot of lore in that world. The books you can read, you can discover all that stuff, the funny little journals and everything. They throw their personal touches in there, but it is a very straightforward, here you go, enjoy the gameplay, the story is going to be subpar.
Yeah.
And if you can get past that, it's wonderful. If not, and a lot of people don't, because that's, why am I going to do, if I want to do that, I'll read a book or something if I want a world like that. But that's where I think Mass Effect and The Witcher have the edge, is so many people are focused on the character interaction versus the gameplay. Like, if the story is great, they'll forgive a lot in gameplay.
Yeah.
So,
and I think a lot of times people they gravitate to the story because you can talk to your friends about it, and the characters who are identifiable, like Triss Merigold, Yennefer, Geralt, the Crones, and I'm just listing a bunch of Witcher characters. Like, I could get those off the top of my head, but from I think the only thing I remember from Skyrim, and this isn't isn't a bad thing of me bashing on it, because obviously I've played it a few times, but Greybeards. Only thing I remember from Skyrim. Any other thing you're like, oh well, did you go to this town first? I'm like, no, not. No, I don't know. Maybe I did, maybe I didn't. I don't know. It's without that narrative string for me, it's hard to remember that stuff. But also, I mean, obviously, I'm just a huge Witcher fanboy, so I'm always going to go back to that because I think it's story driven. That's what it is,
and I think you brought up a good point that I had never even thought about. Is in games like The Witcher, you can go and talk to friends. Well, I made this choice, and then somebody else is going to view that situation completely different. So it gives you that sense of not only are you playing the game, you can interact with your friends about it too. You can have that discussion. Skyrim. There's not much to discuss about it beyond, hey, did you find this cool cave? There's a Star Wars joke in there if you find this cave that's in the middle of nowhere. So it's definitely fun, and I think Skyrim can be fun playing with friends because you get to see their gameplay style. Gives you
why wasn't that ever a thing? They went with like the Elder Scrolls Online, and it was just MMO. I'm like, just take Skyrim and just put 3 other people in there. Exact same game, just add more people. And I know they've added like the mod that you can play with other people, like they have like servers for it.
Oh, that'd be cool. I thought about that too. I'm gonna reference Fallout 76 and the atrocity that
point.
Occurred.
That's a good point.
Well, and the only other thing is, like we're saying, we're adults. We all have jobs and everything going on in life. One of the charms about the Elder Scrolls for me is that you do pick it up, you can play, you can do it for 5 minutes, you can do it for 6 hours. It's when you go into that world, it's you have that time. You don't have to have that interaction. You don't have to have like the style of gameplay that so many publishers and everything are going towards is that go online with friends. That's great. I'm going to say that's fully geared towards children or, young teens, people who haven't hit that stride in life yet where they have that free time. And
or when they don't want to talk to people because they're pissed off at the world. And they're just like, I want to be inside, windows closed, blinds down. I want to play a game where no one talks to me and I get to do what I get to do. I think Skyrim would really benefit from being more simulator than... Because it walks that fine line where you could almost treat it like a simulator where you get your own house and you just go through your own routine because, you're making your own stories. I feel like the next Skyrim would really benefit from like, okay, you could just pop up a farm and just farm.
I have a feeling that's a direction they're going to go because if you look at just the difference between Oblivion and Skyrim, Oblivion, there was, as far as crafting goes, it was mostly just you can repair your armor, and then there was like alchemy. There really wasn't a whole lot in the sense of customizing there was enchantments and stuff with downloadable content. You could do your own enchanting and that sort of stuff. Then you have Skyrim. Craft anything you want. You want to use that iron sword, the most basic weapon in the game. You can buff your smithing and craft the living heck out of it, and it'll be good, just as good as any other weapon. The houses, whereas in Oblivion, a lot of it was downloadable, but you could get these houses, but they were pre-made. In Skyrim, you got to build it and customize it yourself at these different locations. If you're a wizard, do you want a wizard's tower? Do you want what were the other? You can do an armory if you want to display your stuff, trophy halls. So they're slowly moving in that direction, and I think they got to be careful with it. I think they should have that be a feature of the game. I don't think they should go the route of making it a necessity because a lot of people who play that game might not want to have to do that style of gameplay. But if they added it in as a bonus, like, hey, if you want to do this on the side for coin or just for fun, I think that would be a huge improvement to their games.
Yeah, I mean, I would play it because my friend and I have stumbled upon the fact that we'll play games that are like kind of the simulator thing, kind of like Valhiem I was talking about. And there's a bunch of other games that are kind of like that simulator game where, okay, there's an objective, but there's so much other stuff to do that you can just do this stuff and not progress the story and still enjoy yourself. Right now, I'm running probably one of the world's biggest carrot farms right now. Because there's that option. You can grow turnips, carrots, and I can't sell them to anyone, but I just have like massive fields of carrots, and I'm like, I don't know why I'm doing this, but I'm enjoying it. And I think it'd be cool, like if, okay, yeah, you can go on this big quest and then stop your quest halfway through and be like, I'm gonna go farm. So you just pick somewhere on the world map, you slap a house down. I will say, like, Fallout 76, I did play it because my friend loved that series and he wanted someone to play with. I'm like, yeah, fine, I'll get it. Never been a fan of the series. And the only reason I'm not a fan of that series is because I just don't like the world. Just the world building, just the structure of it. It just isn't interesting to me because it's like post-apocalyptic in the, like, I don't know, what would it be, like 1940s, 1950s, like that kind of time frame?
That time frame, and then they jump it forward like, the 200 years. But because that was the height of civilization when the bombs dropped, that's, kind of the style of the world.
Yeah, like the gameplay is fun, but it's just the world I cannot care less about. But in 76, you could base build, and I spent a lot of time doing that. I would build like these beautiful bases.
And that brings up Fallout 4 had that mentality of you had your settlements and you could go in and customize what you're doing. And I loved it because it, like you said, I'm like, well, I don't really feel like going out into the world. I'm going to stay here and what resources do I have? Can I upgrade this? But they never made it a necessity. Like you could ignore it completely. You'd be fine. You didn't have to worry about anything. Mm-hmm. But if you wanted to make your own like nice house, settlement, if you want to go that route of like keeping the people happy or giving it defense, that was a lot of fun. Like you were saying, you could just go crazy building your walls. What was that? I've never played Minecraft, but I assume that's kind of the big appeal in Minecraft is just building all this crazy.
Yeah, that's it. And there is kind of an end game that you can reach. But in that situation, they put the simulation first before the story or the world, just because they're like, if you get that invested, okay, this is for you. But if not, like I play Minecraft with my friends sometimes. All we do is just like build a little town, and then we just kind of just live in that town. We just mess around, right? We get to a certain point and we never go past that.
But and games like that are fun to have at times though, because you don't always want that. I don't know, games like, I got to be in the mood to play them, games like Sekiro or the Dark Souls, where it is just constant, you're going to grind away at it, you are waiting for the end you play that game for the end, I mean, obviously you play any game to beat it, but you play that game to beat it and put it down for 6 months and say, I'm never going to look at you, I'm not going to look at you for 6 months.
Exactly.
That was, sometimes fun to go in and just screw around and have that lightheartedness, but...
Yeah, and you can definitely get that in Skyrim. Like I said, it's the combination that just doesn't sit with me well. But I'm interested to see what they're gonna do later on. Like I never played Oblivion. I remember playing Morrowind on my old computer, and the thing with that is I didn't know what I was doing, so I would go to the starter town and then I would never leave because I didn't know what to do. Because I was expecting the game to like. Here, I'm going to take your hand, and we're going to go walk over this way.
And that's in Oblivion. You start, it gives you the markers, it gives you the map. It keeps all of your This annoyed the living crap out of me. And kudos to anybody who played Morrowind for real and beat it. I don't know how. Oblivion had the now typical style of journal where it kept all your quests separate and everything, so you could go through and find it. Mm-hmm. Morrowind did not do that. Every time you got a journal entry, it was in chronological sequence of your order entries. So you have to go through and pick out each different paragraph for, okay, well, if you lost it in your journal, you don't know what you're doing. There was no map markers. As far as I saw, it was like go 3/4 of a mile down the road, there's a rock on your right, and then there will be a cave.
Yeah. I remember,
what?
I remember that quest because it was like with the those ant things.
Yeah.
Like you had to go to that cave to get something, and it just like...
I'm like, how far is 3/4 of a mile? There's 40,000 rocks on this road. Where is the rock I am looking for? So and then obviously Oblivion fixed that. I liked Oblivion the world. I liked the gameplay because it was kind of quirky. So like you were saying earlier, there was ways you could glitch it and have fun. You could jump over people and attack them in the air. Like that was part of the charm to me. And plus that freedom to go ahead and go explore. Like if you don't want that story-driven area, you can just jump off the road, go see if there's a cave. And Skyrim expanded upon that because it was smaller than Oblivion, but the distance between, say, caves or markers and stuff wasn't as far. So there was a lot more off the beaten path to have fun with. And you got rewarded for exploring. Like, in one of the DLCs, Dawnguard, you got a summonable horse. If you went off the path and found like his skull and put it somewhere, then you could just summon a horse wherever you go. I don't know if you played it enough to ever use horses. I hate horses with every fiber of my being because they die constantly, so you spend a fortune on them, or they're in the way, or if you're trying to sneak, they'll come bolting out of nowhere and start attacking something for you. And everybody's like, get Shadowmere. He does the same thing. Like, it's cool that he can't die, which he can die. I killed him before on accident. Jumped off a mountain, didn't mean to. And that was a permanent death. But
yeah, I remember that was a thing you could do. Like, you go to edge of a mountain and it's run down, and then you like jump, and then you realize, oh no, I accidentally, like, there's nothing under me, so you just end up jumping off the mountain.
Yep. Well, we made a game of that in Oblivion, because you could make with alchemy, you could make stuff to increase, or with magic, increase your acrobatics or whatever, speed, all that stuff. So my friend made a spell called Rocket Boots, and he made some potion called something, so it upped his acrobatics and speed and all of that. We went to the highest mountain in the game, and he jumped off it. And I bet him if he would live or not. His character was so buffed on health, he had like 6 health left after he landed. But it was like a quarter of the map he jumped. And no mods, nothing like that. So Oblivion and Skyrim, they have fun stuff you can do like that. But again, you got to go out of your way and get creative with what you're going to do.
Yeah, seriously. But I mean, that's what's great about games, where just there's something different for everybody.
And I do have to say, a lot of my fondness for these games come from I played them a lot with that friend when we were in high school.
So that nostalgia factor.
Nostalgia factor, and that's kind of how we came up with our stories. Is like, I'm going to create a new character. Like, what should his name be? What's the backstory? Blah, blah, blah. So, and I kind of carried that over into Skyrim when I was playing it myself, but I will say I think that's why I kind of gravitate towards games like that, is that's how I was introduced to them. And it's, yeah, there's the story, go ahead and pay attention, but the fun part is make your character and make your own story as you're going.
Oh, and nostalgia is such a powerful thing, because you can even go back to a game, and a game is objectively bad. It is proven by science, by the church, by whoever is in charge, that video game is bad, and you look at it and you play it and you're like, this is perfectly fine, I don't know what's wrong with it, because you remember that stuff as a kid, and it's just like, now a lot of the times I got that Super Mario 3D All-Star Collection.
Oh my gosh, yes, I love that.
Now I didn't grow up with Mario 64, so I went and played it because I'll finally have a chance to play it. Mm-hmm. I don't have the nostalgia goggles, so I can't play it because the camera and the movement is not great.
My wife had the same thing. She goes, this camera sucks. She's like, how did anybody ever play this? My nostalgia for that is I never got to play it because we just never had it as a kid. However, a local grocery store chain had like a mini daycare center back in the 90s when they could somehow get away with it, and they had that video game, and I started, I think, over a dozen files when I was there. But because it was like the mini daycare and whoever got to play, it got deleted every single time I came back. And I got so mad that as an almost 30-year-old man, when 3D All-Stars came out, I pre-ordered it and paid in full for the satisfaction of being able to start it, have a file, and not have it deleted.
And then it's like, never play it again, but you have the file and you're like, yes.
Then that was the funny thing. I actually got to sit down and play it. I loved it. So but again, objectively, compared to today, the controls are terrible. The camera is atrocious. But just like you're saying, that nostalgia factor of, no, I'm playing it now. Screw you other little kids. I'm playing it.
Yeah, you get your time now. Now is your chance to be able to play it, and now is your chance to fully enjoy it.
Asking your mom, can we go grocery shopping today? Eric, you're not going to play the game. No.
Like, oh, please. I want to see if my save file's still there.
Timmy's gonna get there and delete it.
And you're probably pushed up against a glass. Like, you didn't go in there, but you're looking at it, and they're going through the file, and you're like, son of bitch, I deleted it.
Little 7-year-old kid trying to tell the worker there, can you make sure nobody deletes this? And they're lying straight to your face. Oh, of course. I'm not going to do that. You're paying me minimum wage. You think I'm going to I care at all about you?
I forgot about that. And that was like, that is legit just minimum wage, just the daycare.
Think about, this is the 90s. Minimum wage, I don't know if there was an age limit on it, but if there was, it would have been 18. So some 18-year-old kid probably trying to put himself through school is watching it's a complete stranger watching your kid.
Yeah, just so you can grocery
Just
shop.
so the mom cannot, or dad, let's be progressive, whoever the parent is can drop their kid off and shop in peace.
Yeah, but I don't even see that anywhere even now.
Oh, no, that's a lawsuit waiting to happen.
That's the thing. The more
yeah.
I thought about it, I'm like, that's going to have to be a lawsuit, and that's probably why they didn't, because it's a grocery store chain.
Yeah, you're not going to have child care professionals, which, to be fair, I think that's probably not a bad thing.
No.
So
we don't need, some 18-year-old's like, why is my child dead? He's like, dude, I don't know.
If you're putting up with screaming kids all day for minimum wage, you're not going to care.
Oh my gosh.
You're just not going to.
Minimum wage then was less than it is now, right?
It was like 4 or 5 something, I think.
Gosh, it's wild.
Yeah.
Wild stuff. And here's where the train of thought, was going.
It rambled on.
We went to the Skyrim talk because it kept getting brought up.
Yeah.
A part of me thinks like you wanted to weasel your way on here and be like, I'm going to talk about Skyrim.
I'm going to talk about... Well, the problem is I can talk about Skyrim a long time, but I will say, as far as back to the original point of why some people like it, why some don't, we keep hitting on it, but it's just, I think Skyrim is world building that you build the world you want to see, whereas other games like The Witcher and Mass Effect, they give you this world. They're super rich in lore, but one makes you focus on your character, and the other gives you the freedom to, explore your character, but your interaction with the other characters. Here's Commander Shepard, here's all of his friends. What version of Commander Shepard do you see, and how does he interact with the world? Whereas in Skyrim, it's just create the character you want and go. Your decisions aren't going to matter in the end. Mm-hmm. So and I think they're both fun. So I'm lucky I get 2 different style games to play, but other people, and I don't blame them. Why are you going to put in that time if you're not getting that reward back from it? Mm-hmm. I am a loser who spends hours on end crafting his armor and weapons to be matching, physically appeasing, but it's a first person game. So
I know that feeling. I do that in when I was playing Destiny 2 a lot, I would do that too. And there would be no benefit at all, but I just wanted to because I wanted a matching armor set.
You get a weapon or something, and you're like, this is awesome, and then you zoom out, and you're like, this doesn't match. I can't do this. I can't use this yet. Yeah. I am ashamed to say that as an almost 30-year-old man, I will ask my wife for fashion advice in video games. I'm like, I can't pick. Which one do you think is better?
A lot of games started now where you have the option you can wear the armor set, or you can actually, like, the armor set and all the stats are there, but you can just dress up however you want.
Yes. There's a lot of... Diablo 3 was one that did that. Like, you can just transform your armor and make it look... Which I thought that was a cool way to have it, because that's... Again, armor doesn't really mean much in that game beyond the stats, so... Have fun with it. Spend the money, unlock it, and then you're good to go.
Yeah. But a lot of times the option to do that now is behind a paywall of sorts.
That was the reason I had the 360 console, and the reason I switched to PS4 was, when it initially came out, there's going to be no backwards compatibility. So the vast fortune I spent on video games was useless on the next gen. Right. And then Microsoft also got very nickel and dime. Mm-hmm. All of the downloadable... Oblivion was probably the biggest defining game in my life, so that nostalgia factor for why I like it. I bought all of the downloadable content. If you were not connected to the internet, you couldn't play it. You couldn't even play the base game. You had to probably delete everything or start a new file where you couldn't access it. And to me, that was just ridiculous. You already have my money. Why? It's downloaded. The software is there. But because I can't access the internet, what? You think I'm stealing it now?
Yeah, or I'm going to mod it and do something. At this point, it shouldn't even matter. But I will say, like, that was where Xbox started and, like, the new Xbox, like, won. And then they kind of turned it around where they're a lot more consumer-friendly. Like, Microsoft is. A lot more consumer-friendly compared to PlayStation, who is kind of now taking, like, the role of what Xbox did when it was leaving the 360.
And I'd love to get a new console. I am so back and forth because of Bethesda, or what was it? ZeniMax Studios was the parent company.
Oh yeah, the one that Microsoft bought.
Yes. So, and everybody's like, well, they're not going to make, all these games Xbox exclusive. I'm like, have you seen their track record?
Yeah,
Are you really going to say that on record?
Yeah, I agree with that.
Until I hear the company themselves announce it, I will assume that everything will be Xbox exclusive.
Yeah, so especially Elder Scrolls is going to go Xbox exclusive.
And my thing is there's only a few games that I'm, like, real big on, and Elder Scrolls is one of them. I'm a big fan of like the studios that make Dark Souls and Sekiro and that style games.
Oh yeah.
So if they kept them on both, awesome. But I keep going back and forth. Do I want to put money into one and then, oops, you're out of luck?
That's where all the brand deals come in and the politics, and it just
and because like Spider-Man's a PS5 exclusive now. I played I almost said original, but the one for the PS4. That was one of the best games I've played in a long time. I love
the new Spider-Man game.
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
okay.
The newest one is Spider-Man Miles Morales.
Yeah. Okay, I mean, so it was the one before that.
Yeah, so the one before that was amazing gameplay. You got to swing around and explore the city. I loved those games as a kid. I don't know if it's going to be enough, though. Like, that one game isn't enough to sway me to PS5 because... am I going to get the other ones?
And that's the thing. That's what they want you to do. They want you to be like brand loyalty. They're really pushing brand loyalty
Which is
now.
so annoying because if you just let people buy the console you want, everybody's going to make money on the games.
Yeah.
I don't...
But it's just the rich people wanting to make more money.
I know you talk about indie developers all the time, and I am jumping on that bandwagon slowly but surely.
Like that, and
I just can't.
Like the thing is, like Valheim, I was talking about a little earlier. That was made by 5 dudes. Cost $20. I have already got like $1 an hour for enjoyment, plus the other 30 hours I have in it.
One of the best indie games, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not positive, but I think it was Castle Crashers. I believe that was an indie game.
Yeah,
I played that for hours and hours. That was it was funny. It was fun gameplay, all those different weapons and the characters. It was great. And I
think the thing is that the people who make those games take the things that they found fun with the games that they grew up with, and they're like, okay, I'm going to put my spin on this. But also, I'm not going to go down the route of, brand deals. And I mean, it sometimes happens. If you got to make money, you got to make money. I understand that, especially in that. But they're so focused on, okay, I have this one vision. And obviously, it's not going to be for everybody, but it's this one thing I want to do. And developers now, they're more focused on the bottom line just because the people who are at the top focus because it's a huge industry,
and if you don't meet that bottom line, you're not going to make games. So that's where their argument is, well, you can get this version of the game or you can get nothing. And it's, well, if you give them a little bit more freedom to do what they want with it, like you're saying, they're going to put their heart and soul into that game.
Yeah.
Like that lore, somebody had to sit down and come up with all of those lore books. They have to come up with the characters and their backstories. Give them that little bit of time to just don't worry as much. If you make a good game, you will make money on it. Especially in this day and age when you can be that indie developer, throw it up on that website, get crowdfunded for it, and make it a reality. If you are a AAA game studio,
yeah,
you'll make money. You will be fine. It's that
And it's just, I think they just want to really put themselves out there as like, we're the only ones who make this game, and you have to buy from us. And I mean, gosh, like Resident Evil 8 came out, and I was kind of interested, but like,
oh yeah, I didn't even play 7 yet.
I mean, they're good, they're fun. I don't have any complaints about them because they're just fun, but also at the same time, I'm like, I'm just gonna wait till, because I don't know. There's no drive for me to be there to see like, oh, I'm gonna have to see what happens first, because right now that doesn't really matter to me anymore. Finding out what happens at the end, because that's why a lot of people with those big blockbuster games that have the big story to them, it's a rush to see the ending, so you can like brag to people that, haha, I saw the ending. Like,
yeah, you can get in and make the memes first and spoil the story for everybody. Thankfully, I'm not as worried about that now, because that was, when I was younger, that was me. I wanted to know the story, and God help you if you ruin that story for me.
Oh, yeah.
You could see the nerd rage come out then. But yeah, now I'm like, I'm playing the game for the experience now. I'll get to the story when I get to the story. So...
It's crazy how things change so much. And I did have a list here of like nostalgic games, games that are nostalgic to you and why you love them so much. Because I remember a time talking to you where you said, especially during when COVID got really bad, you were like, I'm just going to go back to the old games I played and grew up with as like that comfort food almost.
Yes, when the... I don't want to bring down the mood or anything, but when the quarantine blues were really getting to me, when I really isolated, I went through a phase of nothing sounded fun to play. I didn't know what I wanted to play. And
that's just depression.
Oh, well, yes. Okay.
As bluntly as like, that's just being depressed.
Okay, well, in full disclosure, that's definitely something I also struggle with. But at that point, I didn't know what to do. Nothing sounded fun. I couldn't get through it. And then that's what I did. I'm like, well, I keep worrying about all this new stuff or all these new games. And I'm like, I have to keep up with all these new games. No, I don't. I have a million games on these old consoles. I went back and played all of the Dragon Ages. 1 and 2. I had my wisdom teeth out one weekend, so just in complete and utter pain.
And also probably being doped up on pills.
Oh, yes.
You're like, yes.
Afterward, he's like, if you need more, just let me know. I'll get you more. I unfortunately have a very addictive personality, so I cut myself off at the initial amount he gave me.
Right, yeah.
And so, but yes, I was allowed 1 in the morning and then 1 at night so I could get to sleep. And that's what I did. I popped 1 in the morning and I played Dragon Age. I beat... I would say a solid 75% of the first Dragon Age, all DLC included, in about 2 or 3 days because I was off of work. I played it for like 12 hours a day.
There's a beauty in that. You're like,
I'm like, I'm in so much pain and I can't get off the couch. I can't do anything. So and that's when I stopped worrying so much about all these new games. I have to keep up with all. Like we keep saying, I'm older. I'm not going to keep up with all the new games. I'm just not. I don't have that time. And it was really refreshing to go back to that nostalgia game of when you were 16, 17, and just... it was almost like re-experiencing it because it had been so long since I had played it. Mm-hmm. And then it revamped my desire to play the new games because like now I currently have a file on Inquisition because they've been kind of teasing the next Dragon Age.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So I'm saying, Dragon Age 3. And so I'm like halfway through that file. I'm taking a little bit of a break, but I know I'm going to go back to it because I'm excited for the new one, even though it's probably still a few years away. But
yeah, especially that one.
Yes, but Inquisition was huge. That was one of the ones they probably could have scaled down just a little bit.
That's what I heard. That game was massive.
It was massive to the point it didn't need to be. There were maps that, and there's one in particular I'm thinking of, it's like a desert. I can't think of the name of the place, but it was empty except for random, and that map was probably close to the size of the original Dragon Age. Like it was just
like the whole game.
Yes.
Jeez.
It was, and I liked the concept they did because like the first 2 was just here's your small layout. Go dungeon crawling, do your mission, and go. And that was fun. I thought it was a really good style to have.
Yeah,
and they were trying to go... they were trying to just take that model but make it bigger. And in some of their maps, it was great. It was full of all this different stuff to explore, enemies, quests, all that.
Mm-hmm.
They just took it too far in some of them, where it was just, this is pointlessly large. Now, in saying that, I'll give a small correction. I think it was supposed to be that. I think they meant for it to feel empty because it was a desert. They really wanted to give you that experience, which was cool for the first 5 minutes. But then when you're spending more time traveling than actually doing stuff, the novelty wears off very fast.
Oh, yeah. I'm just thinking of like games I played that I got bored of, like open world games. Like, I like them, but they have to be a certain flavor for me.
They got to get those distances right, or they have to have a fast travel system that's useful.
Yeah, I mean, all right, here we go again. Me being Witcher fanboy. In The Witcher, like, okay, so there are towns, and you could unlock fast travel spots all over the map for you going and just exploring. But also, if you look, there are these like little breadcrumbs of these question marks all over the map, and that's like, okay, something's happening here. So like, I would sit there and I would plan out my route and connect the dots of all the question marks to where I was going.
I'm so happy you said that because I did the exact same thing.
That was super fun for me because every time I would get to the third question mark and it would actually be a quest, and then I would go off somewhere else and do that. Yep. And then I'm sitting there and where was I? What was I doing? And I'm looking around and I'm like, oh, that's right, I was going there. So then I plot a new course, and then the same thing happens. But yeah, if it's empty like that, then you're just sitting there holding the run button until you get to something interesting.
Yeah, and at that point you're just like, what was the point in that whole...
Yeah, I think those older games, they were focused and they just worked with what they had. Mm-hmm. And that just made them more compact and more focused compared to a lot of games that are just aimless. Like you said, like, the area is way too big. Mm-hmm. Like, I understand they want to do it for, like, world-building reasons, but then at the same time...
If they were going to do that, like, in Inquisition, you get, like, forward camps or whatever they're called that are fast travel points.
Yeah.
But if you're going to make an area that large, put a lot more in there so your progress is much easier. Because then going back, too, if you wanted to see some merchant or go somewhere for a quest, I mean, sure, you can get close with a travel point, but... There's only maybe 4 in that whole map, and it was ridiculous what you're trying to do. That's actually where currently I am stopped on my file because I hit that wall of, okay, I'm good. I need a break from this. To be fair, I'd also played the first 2 all the way straight through, but...
Yeah, so you were burnt out on the series a little bit. I can even say that for, like, the audiobooks of The Witcher. I've been listening to those while I drive everywhere. Mm-hmm. And I went through 4 books straight, and each of those books are in between 12 to 15 hours.
Oh, wow.
So I was like, I need a break. I've been listening to other stuff. And
it's, you don't want to, you're having fun, but sometimes you want that stopping point, you need that break so you can come back to it later and still enjoy it. Because every once in a while, you just hit that wall where it goes from enjoyment to, no, this is a chore. Like, I'm trying to get through it.
Whenever a game starts to feel like a chore, then, okay, it's not. It's time for you to take a break. And a lot of the games I play, like Warframe, some days logging in just to get some stuff and do a quest or 2, it's a chore. And that's when I stop, because I'm just like, it's supposed to be fun. I do not want to feel like I am being forced to do this.
And that's one of the things I love about games now is because... excuse me, they have all of that lore, but they have these journals too where you go back through and you can read through all this stuff. I never appreciated that as a kid, but now as an adult, when I want to take that break, I used to always, as a kid, I'm like, I have to beat this because I'm not going to remember what happened. Well, as an adult, I don't care anymore because I'm like, no, I'll take 10, 15 minutes and read through the journal and see what's going on. Then I can go from there. So I can take that break, even if it's 6 months. You can pick up right where you left off and not have to worry about missing anything.
Yeah. And I think it's just collectively as a species, we've all inherited this certain level of ADHD.
Yes.
Where we're just, it's like we're on to one thing, on to the next thing. So then having that, like that bookmark that like you can actually come back and be like, oh, I know right where I'm at. Oh, And even if it like literally gives you a synopsis of what you did, it's enough to like trigger that in your brain compared to, man.
I think like as a child I was a little bit OCD because I had to know every detail of everything about the game I was doing. I couldn't miss anything.
Right.
And now like you're saying, I try hard to get everything, but I'm also to the point where no, I got to continue forward. So let's keep going. And if I missed it, I can YouTube it later and see what I missed.
That's a big thing, YouTubing it. I mean, people just, they make careers off of that and they make our lives easier. I'm sitting here trying to remember there's a game that I literally had to start over completely because I could not remember what I was doing in it. I do not remember anything about it, and it was an older game. And it's just not coming to mind. It might pop in my head, but I mean, that's a very real thing. Go back to an older game and you're like, what was I doing? Where am I? What's my quest right now? And they don't necessarily have a system because I think back then, games you were meant to pick up and play like
consistently.
Yeah, and for like you were putting an investment in time. Now it's just like some industries, some industry heads or people who make games literally make games like those idle games where it's like you don't play them. They play themselves and you just log in and get rewards and then you move on to something else. I mean, it's crazy how things have kind of like shifted from when we were kids compared to now. I keep getting ads for like idle games. It's like AFK Arena is one of them that I always get on YouTube. And it's just like literally you don't play the game. You just set up your champions like warriors. And they're all like, I don't know, different kind of fantasy classes, slap armor on them and stuff, and be like, all right, run this dungeon. And then you shut the game off, go throughout your day, come back 3 hours later, and they're just like, we did it. You get your rewards, and then you do it again.
And so you just build up your characters without even playing.
Yes.
I mean, if it works for some people, awesome. I don't see the appeal in that because
there has to be that involvement. You have to be a part of it.
Oh, you logged in. Here's a reward. No. That's no.
Yeah. And I mean, Warframe, it does give you a reward, but everything in that game, I earned all that shit. I put in hours. Well, I didn't even understand or comprehend the basic mechanics of the game until I was about 160 hours in. I earned that.
Well, I don't think there's anything wrong with login bonuses.
Oh, no, definitely not. But like in that case where it's the idle thing, it's just like, oh, here's free stuff. Yeah, that isn't for me. But I had to be sure I put my foot down. Like, listen, I built my Railjack, which is like the giant spaceship you can build. I built that. That took a long time. I earned that. But yeah, there are definitely games where it's just like, oh, login bonuses, especially the new like mobile games everyone plays. All the kids play, let's put it that way, all the children.
I'm too old, I can't get into those games. I just...
There's too many, they have a currency for everything. And I'm like, can I just have a game? A whole game? Which is honestly why I really stick with Nintendo. Because their games are whole games. There might be one or two exceptions somewhere in there. But, I mean, that's more perspective. And I know Nintendo does some dumb stuff, but I still like getting Pokemon Snap. I knew I was getting a whole game.
Well, and like I said, I haven't played it just yet, but I was watching my wife play it, and I was getting super excited because she's like, "Yeah, I never played the original." Well, first off, that's grounds for divorce. So, but second off, I was so excited watching her play it because I'm like, "What did they change? What are they going to do?" And they kept it pretty close to the original. I mean, obviously updated for modern day play, but you're still in like that craft. You're going through, taking the pic, like all of like the fun items from the original game are there.
Yeah,
and and you have to go back as you get items to get new photos, and it was the nostalgia purpose. I think they nailed it great as far as updating it for modern day gameplay, but keeping all those elements that made it such a good game in the first place.
Oh, yeah. As soon as you get that little Illumina ball and you throw it, that's the thing that lights them up. And I don't know why they have, like, those, what are those called? The Night Brights? like the board with the pegs you put in.
Yeah.
And then you turn the thing like that's what you would turn a Pokemon into. And you just chuck it at them. And okay, so I'm like, that's the Pester Ball. Because the Pester Ball was that little ball that exploded
like the little
purple.
poof.
Yeah, and they would get mad. The apple, it's an apple. They're like, it's a fluff fruit. I'm like, it's an apple.
I don't think anybody's gonna sue you if you call it an apple.
Yeah. And then there was the music thing, and then and that's all there was. You know, those were the three things, and they just really stuck to what worked, and then just all right, we're just adding new Pokemon. We're just adding alternative routes, and there's still some stuff that I can't figure out how to do yet. And like I see. On the one jungle map, there's a slacking sleeping, and I throw apples at him, and he'll eat. But I'm like, I got to be able to do something else.
So I just
keep
somehow.
going. Yeah, I keep going through there, and I keep just, dude, this slacking's probably sick of my crap. And he's trying to take a nap, and he hears like all the animals moving. He's like, oh no, is he back? And I just start pelting him with the apples. I'm like, get up and do something.
Beaming him in the head. He's just like, just leave me alone, man.
He's like, please. I play the music. He's like, I hate this song. I throw the ball at him and he lights up and he's like, "Oh, okay, I'm light up now."
Shine bright like a diamond. Let's go, man. We've been down this road.
And the fun thing is like now they take that old kind of gameplay and they modernize it enough. But like you can post your pictures on there with a bunch of other people. I think that's actually really cool. Like seeing how other people got pictures, which even like, oh. That's how you get that picture. Like when you look at it and you see like there's a Pokemon there and a bunch of apples around, and you're like, that's how you get it. I understand now.
I like that aspect a lot because especially with the first Pokemon Snap, you just had to explore. But I don't think we had enough internet yet back then to actually just going, all right, I'm just going to Google how to do this. No, you had to spend hours and hours trying to figure that out.
Yeah, and I think nothing's really hidden in games anymore.
Which is kind of sad because that exploration aspect was what was so fun, and I'm guilty of it too. I'm not gonna lie. If I get too frustrated with something, I'm like, no, this isn't fun anymore. I want to play this game for fun, and I just look up how to go through it. Go on some Reddit or Google or wherever, and just how did you guys do it? Yeah,
please help me. And I distinctly remember getting in the original Pokemon Snap, getting that you had to hit. Was it hit the Diglets or something in that cave where they would move around and start hitting switches, and then at the end there would be that spotlight that would come up in the rock formation would make a shadow of some kind of...
Was it Zapdos?
Maybe? I don't even remember who it was. Zapdos was there. The egg on top, you'd have to knock it off. Was it a pincher maybe? Pincer? Like you had to like get the shadow of it.
It was the old school... Oh, I know the name of it. Yeah, it was the one in the show that was like an extinct Pokemon or something, and they got like the bones of it. I can't think of...
Was it Aerodactyl or...
It wasn't Aerodactyl. It was like the Pinscher one. I can't... Maybe its name was Pinscher. I don't.
Did it have the two huge pinchers sticking out of its head?
Yes.
Yeah, that's Pinscher, yeah. It's like brown and it has like the kind of bug mouth and it has the two huge horns. Yeah, that one. And it was that shadow. Like... I haven't found anything like that, but there's hints to it, like in the loading screens. And I'm okay with that if the loading screen hints to something like that.
Yeah, it's like, hey, look out for this.
Yeah, it's like, or sometimes you can get Pokemon in a very specific, with a specific background. That'll get you more points. And then I'm thinking, so every time I see a Pokemon, I'm going through the routes and I'm not seeing like, oh, it's a Bulbasaur. I'm like, you get your ass over here in front of this waterfall. I'm going to take a picture of you. All right, we ready? Ready? Bam, 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 bam.
Well, like I saw, again, as my wife was playing it, she saw, what was it, Magikarp. And I was like, ooh, throw something at it. Get it in the water. Have it do something. And she's like, why? I'm like, well, you clearly, again, grounds for divorce, never played the first one. Maybe you can have it evolve into Gyarados.
Yeah, there is one part where there's a whirlpool and there's a Magikarp in there. And they keep telling you, hey, there's something in there. So I just keep chucking apples and the Magikarp keeps jumping out higher and higher. And I haven't gotten it to the point where it gets high enough where I don't know if something's going to fly down and grab it or if when he falls down last time a Gyarados comes out.
Oh, that would be cool.
But I'm doing trial and error stuff. I am like figuring stuff out. And I think a part of it is a lot of games is like it's a puzzle. Like, they don't give you everything. You kind of have to...
Yeah, you got to fill in that last piece yourself.
Yeah. And definitely, like, I'm gonna hop off of the Pokemon and talk about Valheim for a second. Only because you got a whole podcast to talk about Elder Scrolls. It's my show. You show up here in my place. I'm kidding. But a lot of this stuff is not given to you. And obviously you can look up guides online if you want. And a few times I've had to look up a few things. But there are these just tombstones in the game, or these giant rocks that you can walk up and read them. And they will give you just enough hints to figure out, oh, maybe I do this with like a boar. So you don't know anything about Valheim, I take it?
No, I've
all right, let me give you the rundown. So it is kind of looks a little bit like RuneScape. It's like all 3D, and it's like all it's a third person game. It's a survival game. You play as a probably Nordic Viking of something. You literally died, and you're in Valheim, which is kind of like the purgatory before you go to Valhalla. And you can see the Yggdrasil tree, I don't even know how you say that, in the sky. And what you do, it's a survival game, but your objective is to fight these 5 different gods. And once you beat them all, you can ascend up to
into
Valhalla.
Your paradise.
Yeah, your paradise. But, you have to build forts. You have to build little huts. You have to upgrade yourself at the same time. There's RPG elements. I'm trying to think what else I can compare it to, because kind of Minecraft, you have to get a certain number of resources to build something. But like people will go in and build like giant like forts and giant forts, and I'm not editing that out. Giant forts and giant like just barricade. Like I literally went onto the subreddit and I'm like, I want to see what people have built. Right? I literally saw something equivalent to Helm's Deep. And, like, one guy's like, I built a castle the other day. And there's the picture of it. I'm like, that's a fort. That is a kingdom. That's not just a castle. And the guy, like, just showed, like, a few pictures of walking through it. Like, there's intricate hallways that, it gives you that option. And then what I was saying earlier about, like, maybe adding this kind of stuff into Skyrim where you could just build these little forts and stuff. And maybe that would draw me in a little more. But not getting off of that because we hopped off that. But you have to fight these bosses. So with that, a lot of it is exploration, a lot of it is discovery, a lot of it is trial and error. So the story I have is yesterday, and anyone who's played Valheim will kind of know what I'm talking about. So my friend and I were playing yesterday, and this is why I was kind of late getting here, because I was woken up super early. My niece just kicked in the door, walked in, and she was like, "It is time to wake up.
Uncle Brandon, the hour is here."
Pretty much. And I look at her and I just look at her. I'm like, what? Why? Why do I need to wake up? And she's like, because it's time to wake up. And she leaves with my door open, and I look at my clock. I'm like, it's 7:45.
I was still waiting for it to be like 10 o'clock.
And I was like, I was trying to sleep in. So I get up and okay, so keep that story in mind that I was woken up early because I was late because I was fixing a lot of the stuff that happened the night before. So my friend and I decided to go through the woods and go to the marker of where the next boss was just to get there, because we recently figured out we can build portals. So we have this big fort called Fort Butt Sauce, established in 2021, and it has this giant eating hall. It has this farmhouse where we have all the carrots, and right now we're finishing building a barn to get boars, because you can tame the boars that live around. And that's where I was going to get to, where a description on the thing on one of these tombstones said, okay, if you give a boar a root of the earth, they will be friendly. I mean, it said it obviously in its Nordic way. I'm like, oh, so I snuck up on one and I started chucking carrots at it just to see if it would work, and it started eating them. I was like, oh, this is it. So I kept giving it carrots. After a few carrots, a little heart appeared, and then it started following me around. So then I have a pen outside that I put the boar in. So if you get 2 boars, it'll make more boars, and you can harvest them for meat and materials and stuff. I didn't have to look that up. Like,
it's just that little tidbit.
That little hint, and didn't give me like the exact description. It just said root of the earth. I'm like, well, I just grew a bunch of carrots. So with that, we decided, okay, so Fort Butt Sauce, we're going to leave there. We're going to go trek a path out to the next boss. This was brutal. This was a brutal trip. We literally were like building like a little miniature fort just to sleep in at night because it gets very dangerous at night. And there's all these like, there's trolls, which are really hard to fight. There's gray dwarfs, which are just these gross tree looking people. So we got there, and the thing I'm trying to make a point of is like having that kind of experience of trial and error is my friend and I almost soft locked the game where we lost everything because there was this river and swimming is based on stamina. If your stamina runs out, you start to take damage. So we're on one side of the river, we see a village and we're like, oh my gosh, there's a village. We could set up camp there because we could just see in the distance. We're like, okay, we're going to do that. We get our stuff. We just start swimming across and we're getting closer and we're like, oh no, we're not going to make it. We're not going to make it. So my friend's just like, you keep swimming. So we're swimming. I am literally like a foot away from the beach because as long as you touch down on the ground, you can still be in the water. It's just you can't be swimming.
Yeah.
I was a foot away and I died. And my friend died like a little bit behind me. So then we respawned on this little island that we set up a camp at. And we're sitting there. We don't have our items. We don't have our boosts. We don't have our food. And we're like, we can't get off this island. We cannot escape. So, okay, here's trial and error. This does not work. Thankfully, after an hour of figuring this out, I was able to find big rocks in the water that you could swim to, stand, get your stamina back, swim to, stand, and go to the other shore where we had to loop around, almost a continent-sized loop, to another spot where there was a little cut in the river where we could do the same thing to get over to the town. So we get to the town and it's full of joggers. And like they're like a one-hit kill. We found that out on her end. No, that's not even right. Because she didn't even make it off the island. She kept trying. She's like, I keep dying. I'm like, all right, I'll figure this out. So I get my stuff back. And then while dodging joggers and they're trying to kill me, I am getting enough resources to build a boat, but you need a workbench. So I'm slapping a workbench on the beach. I build a boat. I hop on the boat, miss his swings, sail out to go get her. Then we go get her stuff. And we're like, screw this. We're going home. So we start heading home. And we're emotionally exhausted at this point because we had a lot of good gear. Everything is earned. And then we found the ocean. And the ocean has some kind of Leviathan in it.
Oh my god!
This is just something I know just because some of the trailers I've seen and some things that people have talked about. And I like turn the boat. I'm like, we're going back to land. We're running back. But that was like, that's the trial and error, right? And it was, even though it was stressful, and at the end of it, the boat made it to our dock at Fort Butt Sauce. We hopped out. We went in, set our spawn points. I'm like, I'm done. Good night. And she's like, I'm emotionally drained. We're done for the evening. And I shut it off. And like the next morning was just me like, okay, looking at the map. I had to fix everything. We left the farm unattended. So, and it's like, that level of trial and error is so rewarding. And I think the new Pokemon Snap, now I just went discuss Valheim for about 20 minutes, but the new Pokemon Snap, there's like that trial and error. Not everything is known, and it's just nice to have that. It's a challenge. You sit there.
That old school, just take that little bit of time and explore, see what works and what doesn't. And then...
Yeah. Let me ask you, have you seen Kate with the jungle? Has she killed the little Morlulls, those little mushroom people?
Knocked him over?
Yeah.
Yes. We were I heard her howling downstairs, and I walked down. I'm like, what's wrong? She had tears running down her face. She goes, come down here. You gotta see this. And she's just pelting them, and they're just all falling.
Yeah, when they fall over, they let up the spores. And there's the set at the end if you hit them, and like the two get depressed, and they look sad, and their friend's dead next to them. I'm like, and like that's something.
Take that photo.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a 2-star photo, which is haunting. That like the professor's like, yeah, give me some photos of dead Pokemon. I'll take those.
Here, you little 12-year-old, go kill something, take a photo, and show me.
Yeah, it's and I mean, a lot of the Pokemon appeal and Pokemon Snap, that appeal from that was like, we grew up with those games. I don't know if you did, but I kind of grew up with like the Pokemon Gold and Silver a little bit through a friend. even though I had an N64, and then from that I played, Pokemon Snap, and I was like, oh wow, I get to see these Pokemon like in, an actual space compared to just on a cartridge. But I think for like the newer fans of Pokemon and the littler kids, like they're gonna get a big kick out of like, oh my gosh, even when I was watching my friend's wife play it, not your wife, my other friend who also has a wife, just putting that out there. She was playing it for the first time, and I was sitting there. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's a Metapod. Oh, look, it's a Buffalo. And I'm like sitting there pointing them all out. And she's like, I like Pokemon, but I'm not as big a loser as you are. Like, I was just like, I was pointing them all out, and I was excited. And then, like, once that initial excitement was over, she was getting excited about it too. And we're both like, oh, look, it's that. Oh, look, it's that. She also took a lot of pictures of their butts, which was concerning. And I told her I was worried about it. Like a full trip that she took on one of the routes. I'm like, these are all butt pictures. Not a single one has a face, and she's like, butts.
Post those online. Let's see what happens.
There's that option. I did post one picture. Like I was saying earlier, you can post your photos of other people. I did post a photo of McChamp doing squats. And it's on that one rock in the reef, but it's just his upper pectorals down, mid stomach down, and he's squatting.
Hey brother, eyes up here.
I think all I did was for the caption was I said YAS, yas, and that was it, and that was my image, and I'm actually wondering if it's gonna get taken down. I kind of hope it does. It's either that or they're going to start throwing this is the best photo ever taken.
But that's the beauty of just when a franchise can last so long that you go from the innocent child to being able to take a photo that will be taken down as an adult.
Exactly.
On something so innocent as Pokemon.
Seriously. I do hate his design, though. I've never liked Machamp's design. It's like he has another set of shoulder blades just glued to the back of him.
Yeah, it was always a very awkward way to do that. I never understood how physically he was able to just move and
because
a
lot of more modern. I mean, that was back in the 90s, but a lot of more modern creative books or movies, with two-armed characters, it'll be two shoulders placed up here at in the same spot, and they would function, but it would just be two of them, and one arm would be forward a little bit, other arm in the back. He had almost like another rib cage and sternum slapped onto the back of him, and the arms came out of it. Yeah, now that I think about it, Machamp's weird looking.
I almost wonder if they were originally going to be wings or something, and they're just like, nah, this is stupid, and then just scale it down to arms.
If you ever have an interest in that, looking up the creative process of any Pokemon is absolutely fascinating. A lot of the older Pokemon is also plural. So I said Pokemons. We've gone too far. But a lot of them had evolutions where, Blastoise. You know what Blastoise is?
Yeah.
Classic Squirtle final evolution. He was his own Pokemon completely. He was never related to Squirtle. It was Squirtle, Wartortle, and then one that looked like Wartortle but with more feathers on its butt. That was it. So then they're just we're going to take that out when this one, we're just going to put him there. And there's a lot that they've done that with, which, I mean, I find that fascinating because of my creative interest and stuff like that.
I think that would be really interesting to see. I unfortunately don't have that creative spark in me. About as creative as I get is the Elder Scrolls creating the backstory. I've always been that way, though.
Right.
I would like to say I'm a great sounding board. I'm really good at adding touches to stuff, but I've never had, and I've always been incredibly jealous of people who have it, that spark, that drive to just taking this concept out of thin air and just giving it life. So, and
it's terrible. I'll be honest, it's terrible because it haunts you at night, and you sit there and you get, you're walking into the gas station to get something, and you walk out and you just see how this old person walks into the store, and your brain just is like, oh my gosh. I have an idea for this thing I'm working on. And it's all because of this old person being unable to walk like they used to.
That sounds terrible because I'm the type of individual where I will physically have to just somehow shut my brain off, because if I think too long or too deep about something, I will have an existential crisis.
Yes.
Just it's that classic, cliche, realize how small you are in the universe, but I will have a full-blown panic attack, can't breathe, sweats, just okay, you know what? I'm gonna sit down and play a game. I need my mind to go in this opposite direction right now.
Yes.
So I'm happy having I would never I'd like to think I'm not a stupid individual, but I am fully happy just staying at a certain level of just competence.
Ignorance is bliss, like they say. Ignorance is bliss.
I am a functional adult, and I have no interest going further than that.
No. Well, with that little existential crisis just being placed there for everyone, we've been going at this for quite a bit of time. I'm not even going to tell you how long until after we're done.
Oh.
But you're going to be like, oh no.
Sorry, Kate.
So, let's wrap it up here. Thank you everyone for listening. Appreciate you always being here. Stay safe. Make good choices. Someone say bye to Eric.
Thank you to who just said bye. Bye to you too.
All right. I'll see you all in the next one. Take care.